A warm welcome to all our viewers to our series Natural Medicine. We hear again and again how important the pineal gland is. Where is it actually in our body? What's its job? And what's the problem? What you hear again and again, that the pineal gland doesn't seem to be able to do its job as well anymore. I'd like to know all this from a neurobiologist, Dr. Heidi Wichmann. She's connected to us today, so stay tuned, it's about to start. Dear Dr. Heidi Wichmann, a very warm welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me again.
My pleasure. Please explain to us, where is the pineal gland and what does it do? Where is the problem? I think melatonin, serotonin is also a big issue, as well as the connection to consciousness or to spirituality, something like that, please. The stage is yours.
It's my turn. So the pineal gland is a gland in the brain that lies more between the cerebral hemispheres. Almost everyone is familiar with the term third eye. That is located here, just like the brow chakra, and this is related to the location of the pineal gland as well. The third eye is also often called the pineal gland. So, as I said, it sits at about this height from the front and about this way from the side. It's pretty small, so it's something like 5 to 8 millimeters long and about 3 to 5 millimeters thick. And it is said to have been several centimetres tall in the past. What we also know today is that by the age of 20 at the latest you already have calcification of the pineal gland. And that of course is a functional impairment. But maybe we'll get into that in a little more detail in a moment. First of all, I would like to explain the pineal gland again. It is of enormous importance. In conventional medicine, it is now known for certain that of course it is the conductor of the day and night rhythm, the walking and sleeping rhythm of humans, because that's where this melatonin, our sleep and dream hormone, it's not just that, I'll come back to that in a moment, is produced from serotonin.
Serotonin is the happy hormone, and as said, melatonin is not only there for sleeping. I also believe that it's involved in many healing processes in the body.
Very many.
And the common problem at the moment is insomnia, lack of happiness. So here, this calcified pineal gland appears to be a cause, right? But why is it calcifying, and how do I get it free again?
It just eventually calcifies, which a lot of people probably already know because of fluoride. This goes straight to the pineal gland and calcifies it, and that's just one of the known factors. I told you last time that there is also an MIT study by Stephanie Seneff, in which it was shown that glyphosate and aluminium can cross the blood-brain barrier much better together than alone. And then they go straight to the pineal gland, but explicitly. And there are a few substances that have been examined in detail in this sense. But there is also much more. That's when I finally started, because I noticed how many poisons there were in the food. It's actually not food. It's filler, but it's sold to us as food. Toxic substances that simply either damage or manipulate the brain, or explicitly disrupt the pineal gland in some way, the way it works. And on the one hand, you notice when you sleep, if you can't sleep properly or can no longer get into the dream phase, that maybe something isn't going right anymore. And there it is important to know how melatonin is formed, simply because, among other things, we are also in a society of scarce for proper amino acids with which the body can do something. So you need L-tryptophan to produce serotonin, and there's still an intermediate step. And finally, the melatonin is made from the serotonin. In theory, serotonin in the gut cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. That's why we can also produce serotonin in the brain, which is then explicitly intended for this metabolism. And if everything goes really well, then the melatonin becomes this consciousness molecule, DMT. So dimethyltryptamine, which is ultimately used in shamanic journeys. I would say some may know ayahuasca, where this substance is released, which is otherwise only found and produced at birth or during near-death experiences. And then people have these powerful mind-altering experiences. These shamans and these indigenous peoples have always done this in South America. It is ayahuasca when the social structure has fallen apart. Because in these dream journeys, they also call it, the people then have found their own very personal way back again on an important path and have simply found their structure or their place in this society, in their society, again. And so it was and is still used today by many in South America. If there are really problems in society, in a village or something, even politicians there do such sessions. That's very interesting.
Did I understand these 8 essential amino acids are important for the pineal gland so that it can really produce large amounts? That means for the people who are in a depression right now, or the people who are constantly having trouble sleeping, it would be important to consume these 8 essential amino acids so that it would be the raw material, but now it's still about this pineal calcification by fluorine, or did you say fluoride?
Fluoride, for example.
And glyphosate to clear this calcification again. What can you do?
Well, first of all, of course, stop taking it as much as you can. It's in toothpaste. It is pumped into many foods. The more natural we eat, the less we have. Don't be exposed to this any longer or have your teeth strengthened. So for God's sake, don't do it.
Also, these bleachings, having teeth bleached, is also with fluoride.
If there is fluoride in it, so tooth bleach is actually something else, but it is actually given, people are told, to strengthen the teeth, which is also true somewhere to a certain extent, but ultimately it also depends on the connection. But as I said, what we take or is fed to us, that's just not this fluoride. It's an artificial substance that doesn't belong in our bodies. Ultimately, also a waste product, but that is another topic. There are also natural uses of fluoride, so you have to differentiate. But in the end, it's the dose that makes the poison. I am now talking about what is added to toothpaste, for example, or what even small children are given to seal their teeth. You have to ask what's in there. You have to see what's in there. The amount is always important. Our bodies are true miracles. They can cope with a lot. I would say if they have enough basis, a good foundation. But nonetheless, once you realise it, and a lot of people know that now they don't use toothpaste anymore, but that's why it's one of the most well-known facts. And this melatonin is also super, super important because it is also an antioxidant in the body. It increases the lifespan of lab rats by 25%. It supports DNA repair, replication, and so on. And in the pineal gland we also have, and now we come back to these energy fields. There are these piezoelectric magnetite crystals. And this piezoelectric effect, which is ultimately caused by pressure, is known from pressure on materials, is caused by this mechanical load. This is converted into an electrical charge.
Like the lighter, right?
Exactly, absolutely. And we have them in large quantities in the cerebral cortex. So that's really at least 5 million magnetite crystals per gram of brain mass. We have them in the pineal gland too, but mainly or especially just really here in the cerebral cortex. And these are sort of like antennas. You could say antennas and also receivers. And the pineal gland is the manager of it, so to speak, and also a converter of this information. So the pineal gland is very important to perceive what we don't see with our eyes with these two. The third eye, and that's why it's there, also has atrophied photoreceptors in it. So the pineal gland also reacts to light. It also controls sleeping and waking rhythm. The pineal gland has this conductor form or task, and you don't go and say, I am now reading the electromagnetic field. This happens subconsciously, and in most cases we do not see it with our normal eyes. Some people can. This also becomes clearer with a decalcified pineal gland. One becomes more sensitive to certain perceptions, but it does it automatically, and then it converts it into dreams, for example, into information. So when we come to a resting phase, like when we are asleep, where the mind is more or less not actively controlled by us, then it starts to show us pictures. A good test is also, Dieter Broers also told me that, and he already did lectures about it, to close your eyes and imagine if, for example, I'm seeing a purple tree or a green leaf, and many people see in shades of grey. And that's a sign that the pineal gland isn't running as it could. Because ultimately it's bringing the colour into life. I would like to put it that way.
Very significant. Thank you very much. I heard a lot that I didn't know. Actually, I would like this pineal gland to do its job and do it so well and get rid of the contamination or just break up this calcification. How do you get to the brain? And one more question before that, sorry. How does conventional medicine actually see the pineal gland?
So more and more is coming out a little bit. This is now no research area in official version. We don't know what happens behind closed doors. We know that it simply has great importance as an antioxidant and, for example, also protects the mitochondria in the cell. I mean the melatonin now. And melatonin is converted from serotonin by the pineal gland. And that's where it's absolutely central. And we actually need more melatonin, but of course through the pineal gland, which doesn't work properly. It usually works somehow for most people, otherwise we would no longer be able to live at all. The body really is a marvel. I then started with the topic, also Toxoplasma gondii, this brain parasite which Dieter also mentions.
Wait a minute now. Sorry, the sound has stopped. Wait a minute, dear Heidi, you're not online anymore. But I'll take over for a moment until she's back. So I recently had a conversation with Dr. Volker Schmiedl. And he also told me that melatonin is incredibly important, also in breast cancer, for example, to prevent breast cancer. Melatonin is an incredibly important thing. But he never explained to me that ultimately the pineal gland produces this melatonin. And if you start from the cause, then you should actually go back and say, instead of supplementing melatonin, one would have to see that the pineal gland produces more. And suddenly the sleep problems would also be gone, and maybe much less breast cancer related problems would be there if only this melatonin were there. I look over briefly because you were gone again. Dear Heidi, the connection to you is gone, but for a short time, but I think I bridged it well. Thanks for coming back. So now we know the pineal gland isn't doing its job as well. And we know how important it is. It's the root cause of problems. I think it's a bit difficult to get right into the brain here. How do I get rid of this calcification?
So, phytosubstances, or rather I come from natural substance research, and secondary metabolites from the sea of certain organisms are so interesting, especially in research, because they are so tiny that in theory, and usually in fact, they cross the blood-brain barrier. And finally, there are many other substances in nature. That's wonderful about the secondary metabolites. And what I did is brain detox, you know that. I've specialised in that, and it's about when I detoxify in general. Then something naturally comes out of the pineal gland. What I have found is that turmeric is known to be very good for pineal detoxification and development and support. But the art is really to get the turmeric administered in the highest possible form, so organically available that it gets there. And for algae, exactly the same. Algae really are, I'm a neurobiologist, that was special, that they simply carry so many brain-protecting substances, at least what the preclinical study situation says.
Yeah, exactly.
And the chaga mushroom, for example, also contains melanin. It is always said that melanin and melatonin are not related. I cannot confirm, from physical personal experience, also from others. But, well, there isn't or wasn't that much research. But also macroalgae from the sea contain small amounts of melatonin depending on the species, and it makes sense to support the body for a certain time, so that the body might get a certain amount of melatonin first. That's all perfectly fine, but ultimately the body should be able to do it alone, and these algae, in combination with chaga, we simply notice that you notice very quickly how this affects dreams and also the quality of sleep. Very rarely I've had the case, maybe once or twice, where someone could not sleep. But then I would say it is very, very important that this person takes care of it, because that can also be an initial aggravation. But we hardly ever have that with algae. You can, if you get detox headaches, then it is with algengluck turmeric. But ultimately the point is any kind of detox is important. And I put together the pineal gland cure myself because, of course, I'm often asked about it. And I opted for the sea minerals, for algengluck turmeric and chaga, because on the one hand also iodine is important for the pineal gland, especially for the cell of the body. But a lot of people have thyroid problems. So this really somehow feels like the plague of the age. So it's really a lot. And there is little iodine in these too. I did it that way also because of other things. But everyone can have a go at it. With the algae, it is not only the melatonin that is so interesting, but also the substance that I was investigating at the time. This DMSP, dimethylsulfonium propionate, which looks insanely similar to the neurotransmitter gamma-aminobutyric acid, so the GABA.
Oh, look.
Yes, I also wrote an article about GABA in algae. So I wrote that down so that you can follow my thoughts a bit. And then I have simply asked myself, can that also be a kind of consciousness inducer? I don't know how to put it. And as a result, I also had a lot to do with Dieter Broers, who takes the algengluck himself and also has a lot of experience also with the Syrian rue and all these things that, firstly, they are very limited, and secondly, a completely different ceremony is done. Ayahuasca is also not allowed here in Germany or in our areas. And he also has his own experiences and has said since then that that's really great. So now we have something simple that really everyone can actually do. And I took ayahuasca myself. I was with a shaman. I think I told you that last time. And I was a bit disappointed at the time. I just really wanted to know, I'm a scientist after all, what's it like when I produce DMT or when I have DMT in my head? And what happens then? What am I then? What do I see? Because I can't say anything unless I've tried it myself. I always do that with everything. I can't comment unless I've tried it myself. So I try it out, and I was a bit disappointed. And in the end, I noticed that it was because I had been taking turmeric and chaga for a long time. I basically made it myself at the kitchen table back then. That was before I had the company. Then I realised that what I experienced there, I have almost every night. So these visions or this inspiration or what you have. So of course in the awake format, when you're awake, like with ayahuasca, then it's even more conscious. But nonetheless, back then I got the hint that something was happening. I can't say exactly what. But then I went further. And then, as Dieter Boers said, with experience, and now we also know these beta-carbolines. This is also a substance that is important for this production of DMT, this consciousness molecule. There is also in algae, not only in the Syrian rue, there is also quite a bit of literature about it, and nature always has many ways. And what is also interesting is that with these wild algae, and I keep saying the wilder, the more there is, the more power there is, because they simply have to assert themselves. The sun has also changed the radiation from the sun, the intensity, the solar storms, that's a different topic in itself. And also these fields, electrical fields or electrons that are shot down there and whatever it's called. And that also has an impact on the algae's DMSP production, which is a substance I studied. DMSP is also formed by algae as a protective molecule and is important for cloud formation in the end. It is then released into nature and eaten by bacteria, I would say. Then the scent of the sea is released and then it goes on to DMSO. Many know that from Hartmut Fischer and so on. They are sulfur compounds, and the sulfur compounds are, in my opinion, also very, very important for the pineal gland. Without the sulfur compounds, without sulfur, we also have problems in our liver with the detoxification enzymes, for example.
Now, something else, this cure, this pineal gland cure. How long do you take it? Until that clears a bit up there, or the happy hormones, more serotonin is produced, melatonin runs better? This connection, there are more dreams, I see everything in colour again or something. What are your experiences?
Very different. I would just start now, and the dose is different. Of course, it depends on how sensitive I am to it myself. If I have many toxic loads now, the algae and also the other substances, of course, have enough to do, first of all, to break down the toxins and get them out before something great happens. But the good thing about the algae chaga is that you notice very early on that something is happening. So with the dream quality. So algae simply contain all the amino acids you can imagine, whether essential or non-essential, and they vary by species. The sea lettuce is the one, that's my favourite, because it is the main DMSP producer in nature among algae after all. But it also contains, depending on where it grows, it also varies all amino acids. I speak relatively often about Kira Kaufmann, and she is an iodine expert who really knows her stuff. If you have questions because the thyroid is not there, or you have Hashimoto or something, she did a lot of educational work, and she also wrote a book that's a year or two old now. It's called Naturally High and Activating the Body's Own Happiness Hormones and Preventing Listlessness, Depression and Anxiety. I'm showing it now. I'm doing foreign book promotion, but it's really good and it's very convenient. You can also have the level of the neurotransmitters and whether everything is in order measured via the urine when you have people who know how to do it. And of course she showed nicely here that it's primarily about the basics, building blocks, primarily the amino acids and so on, but that you not only need melatonin for the neurotransmitters, but also GABA and all other certain building blocks. And then I looked it over and we just got in touch. And then I said to her, that's all in algae, different depending on the species, but that's all in algae.
Please tell me one more thing. If the viewers are now looking for or want more information about a pineal gland cure, where can I find more information about it?
So more information. I always give the information here. We have it on our shop otherwise. As I said, algae really do contain everything that is important also for the neurotransmitter synthesis, and as I just told you briefly, Kira Kaufman with The Natural High, I can highly recommend this book. You can go about it differently. Algae also contain all the cofactors that are important for neurotransmitter synthesis, which I found very interesting. Finally, you will find the pineal gland cure on our site naturally.
Which site? Sorry, excuse me.
drwichmann.com.
Okay, that's where I find more information about all these algae. I think we need to talk a lot more about algae. You mentioned the word seaweed salad.
Sea lettuce.
Sea lettuce. Do I imagine a bowl of sea lettuce?
No, there is that sort of the trivial name of Ulva lactuca. This is what this type of algae is, and it really does look like a salad. It's a beautifully bright green, and it's popularly known as sea lettuce, and it's also eaten in France as a delicacy. And this is the main producer amongst the macroalgae, with the substance that I studied at the time. That's why. And it contains all the amino acids you can imagine.
That's the amazing thing, that all the amino acids are in the algae, and we always tend to have too few amino acids. And I find that very interesting. Dear Heidi, I say goodbye to you. Thank you very much for enlightening us about the pineal gland. I've never heard it so well and finally understood it, so thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
You too, dear viewers. Give utmost importance to your pineal gland. Respect it, appreciate it, support it. I can only recommend that to you. I wish you all the best on this journey. See you next time.